Okay, let's get right to it. Thursday, January 13th. Thanks for joining me right around 10 a.m. Okay, we're talking about the winter storm now that is going to strike much of the Dakotas and then western and southern Minnesota. So basically, and you'll see this on the snow map, potential snow map, you cut Minnesota in half from north or southwest to northeast, and that's where your snow line is going to be, basically from nothing to a lot. All right, this is the water vapor imagery, and you can clearly see that we have a slug of moisture now. Here it is over Montana that's quickly pushing east. This is one of the reasons why snow totals are so high for this Alberta Clipper, which of course usually doesn't bring heavy snows. But this is one of the reasons why heavy snows are expected over southwestern Minnesota, is because of this slug of moisture, and that heavy snow I think is going to make it into the Mankato area too. So just keep that in mind. Whether it makes it into the Twin Cities is really going to be a gamble, almost kind of a coin toss at this stage of the game. And you can see twisting the atmosphere here over the northwestern sections of the United States. That tells me that this is a modified Alberta Clipper. All right, so it's not specifically coming from Alberta because it does have some energy out here in the West Coast. So that's another reason why I think snow totals are going to be higher maybe than what we're all anticipating, at least over southwestern Minnesota. But as I mentioned yesterday, I do believe that the snow totals could get out of hand over portions of eastern Minnesota, or at least southern and southeastern Minnesota, if this narrow band here or this tight gradient were to move further east. Okay, so this storm has the potential to overperform. Okay, and we'll get into that here. But anyway, here's my thinking now, and you can see I've tightened the snow gradients over our region. So you go east of the Mississippi River, basically into Wisconsin, and nothing. I don't see how Eau Claire gets more than a few flurries out of this, if that even. Whereas you start crossing the Mississippi, the Minnesota-Wisconsin border, and quickly the snow totals are going to go up, so that by the time you reach the southwestern Twin Cities metro, that would be Scott County, Carver County, we may be talking about 4 or 5 inches plus in those counties, especially on the western sections of those counties. And then of course the Mankato area, they're likely going to get 6 inches there, whereas Rochester and surrounding communities probably so. It's going to be a real tricky forecast for Rochester and the Twin Cities on whether we get an inch or two or 4 to 5 inches. But anyway, we're used to that. We're used to these tight gradients, and I think that's what we're going to have here. Here's the setup now for Friday afternoon. This is going to be at the height of the storm, right around noon, 1 p.m., and this is at 500 millibars, so 20 to 25,000 feet. There are some red flags with this storm system. Number one, we don't have really strong winds in our atmosphere, so that means that we're not going to get a lot of real good forcing in the atmosphere with this storm. You can see that here. Winds are only up to about 30 to 40 knots, so not very strong, although they are strong on the backside of this storm. So that's at least a little support or energy that the storm is going to be able to work with. But still, the winds are not that strong, even in the lower levels of our atmosphere at about 5 to 7,000 feet. Look at this. Winds are actually pretty light over all of Minnesota, so not a tremendous amount of forcing. We get a little bit of it coming up into southwestern Minnesota. That's why there's a bullseye for snow right here, is because of this low, what we call a low-level jet at about 5 to 7,000 feet. But even that isn't tremendously impressive. And then here are the winds on the back side of the storm system that's going to be wrapping up near Sioux Falls or over southeastern South Dakota. Now, what is impressive with this storm system are the temperatures. We look for what we call dendrite growth zones. And I've told you this many times before, and it's pretty important. At about 700 millibars, which is where this is, about 10 to 15,000 feet in our atmosphere, we like to have temperatures in that minus 10 to minus 14 range. And they clearly are in that temperature range here over southern and southeastern Minnesota, even almost as far northeast, well, as far northeast as the Twin Cities. So if this storm were to overperform, This is one of the reasons, because we are in a really good dendrite growth zone, even in the Twin Cities in Rochester, and not only at 700 millibars, but even at 850 millibars, which is at 5 to 7,000 feet. You can see we're in a pretty good dendrite growth zone area with temperatures in that 10 to 11 below Celsius area over much of southern Minnesota. So the potential is there for this to overperform, not solely because of this, but this is a pretty big reason on why it could overperform. Okay, let's get to future radar now. This is the NAM 3K. We're going to be paying close attention to this guidance here over the next 24 hours. But here's what it's got as of 12 Zulu this morning, so at 7 a.m. Here comes the radar. And here we go. This is as of 10 a.m. this morning. Actually, let me get to the current. Let me get to the 12 Zulu. Apologize for this. Let me get to the 12 Zulu run here. This is the 7 a.m. run now from the NAM 3K. And here we go. Here comes the snow now. Watch the eastern Dakotas right there at about 2 or 3 in the morning. You can see the timestamp up here. Here comes the snow, and it starts to streak into the Mankato area by sunrise, and then into the Twin Cities metro sometime around 9 or 10 in the morning, I'm thinking. Same with Rochester. And like I'd mentioned, western Wisconsin, the Eau Claire area, may not even get a flake out of this. And then that snow continues lightly. It's not going to be a heavy snow, as I'd mentioned, but it's going to continue lightly through the afternoon and then start to come to an end, I think, in the early evening hours here. We're going to be watching this future radar closely, because I think this might change a little bit here over the next couple of runs. But anyway, that's what future radar right now is showing. Here's the snow over the upper Midwest and northern plains and how much to expect. And needless to say, look at the tight gradients right across the I-94 corridor. Here's 94. And the tight gradient is right on top of I-94 in Minnesota, and then down the Highway 52 corridor in southeastern Minnesota. So I think that those are going to be pretty good dividing lines between who gets the snow and who doesn't. When we zoom in and we look at the 3K NAM 3K, this is a pretty telling on exactly what might happen right over the Twin Cities metro. Look at this. By midnight tomorrow night, hardly even any accumulation on the northeastern side of the Twin Cities metro. Same with western Wisconsin and Eau Claire. Meanwhile, we go from 1 inch of snow to 4 inches plus, maybe, as you get into Scott. Here's Scott County here, and then here's Carver County. You're looking at 4 or 5 inches plus on the western sides of those counties. So tight snow gradient from northeast to southwest across the I-94 corridor, and that would include the Twin Cities metro and Rochester. And meanwhile, down in the Mankato area, that's only an hour away from the cities. Mankato, 6 inches plus of snow probably out of this system. Now, just real quick, might as well show you what other guidances are showing for snow. Again, this is the NAM 3K here, and if we put up the GFS computer model guidance and get the latest from the GFS, you can see it's fairly similar, with the I-94 corridor being the dividing line between who gets the significant snow and who doesn't. GFS is a little bit higher with snow totals, so this starts to underline this idea that this storm system could overperform, especially in the western and southern Twin Cities metro. But the screaming message here is the tight snow gradient right across the heart of our region, of our forecasting region, which include the Twin Cities and the I-94 corridor, Highway 52 corridor, and the Mississippi River. So even we look at the Euro model quite often, so let's look at the European guidance and see what it shows. It's showing a solid 2 to about 6 inches of snow across the Twin Cities metro, 8 inches the Mankato area, and 3 to 4 in the Rochester area. And yep, the folks in western Wisconsin, they're likely going to get skunked from this storm. So anyway, the consensus with this storm system is pretty high. So, and this isn't usually the case, but this storm system, the consensus has been good here for the last 2 to 3 runs of all these guidances. So that's why the confidence in snow and kind of where that band's going to be located is really high. Unfortunately, a movement of 10 to 20 miles either way will make a huge difference. Here's your timing graph, and has been sent to you now. And you can see it here that we ramp up the snow late in the morning, and then I think the height of the storm, at least in the Twin Cities metro area, but really that'll be the case over much of southern Minnesota here. The height of the storm will be in the early afternoon before snow will gradually taper off as we get into the late afternoon and early evening hours. I think by about 9 or 10 p.m. in the evening, we should be all done with accumulating snow across southern Minnesota, across our region. And once again, western Wisconsin, nothing really out of this. And here it is, 2 to 6 inches. Plus, that gradient could be even tighter across the Twin Cities metro and the Highway 52 corridor on down to Rochester. All right, just a real quick, here's your trigger graph. Sent this to you yesterday. It hasn't changed really any. There's your Friday system. And then I do have my eye on Tuesday, late Monday into Tuesday. That could be our next accumulating snow, maybe a touch of snow on Sunday morning. All right, we'll have more for you later today via email, but I expect another video briefing tomorrow morning. All right, take care.